The night shift at Deep Space Monitoring Station Echo 7 was usually quiet. Tom Wilson sat at his desk, sipping his third cup of coffee while watching the endless stream of data flow across his screens. Located in the remote highlands of New Mexico, Echo 7 was one of Earth's most advanced deep space monitoring facilities. The first hint that something was different came at 2:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. One of the quantum sensors trained on the outer solar system began picking up unusual energy readings near Jupiter's orbit. Tom blinked, set down his coffee, and leaned forward to study the readings more carefully. "Hey, Rob," he called out to his colleague. "Can you come take a look at this?" Robert Barnes, the senior technician on duty, walked over. His eyes widened as he saw the data patterns. "Those signatures, they're not natural. Run a comparison with known phenomena." Tom's fingers flew across the keyboard. The computer analyzed the energy patterns against its database of known space phenomena. Solar flares, asteroid impacts, quantum fluctuations. Nothing matched. "Getting some mass readings now," Tom said, his voice tense with excitement. "Multiple large objects, definitely artificial. They're huge." Rob grabbed the station's direct line to Space Command. Within minutes, every major telescope in the solar system was turning toward the coordinates. The high-resolution images started coming in just before dawn. The entire night shift crew gathered around the main display screen, staring in amazement. There, illuminated against the backdrop of Jupiter, were 15 massive ships. Each one was easily the size of a small city, their sleek hulls covered in what appeared to be crystalline structures. But something was wrong. The ships were drifting, their movement erratic. No engine signatures were detected, no power readings. They were completely dark except for a few flickering lights that seemed to be emergency systems. "They're in trouble," Rob said quietly. "Those trajectories, they're being pulled into Jupiter's gravity well. Without power, they'll be torn apart in weeks." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Space Command activated its first contact protocols. Every major space agency on Earth was notified. Emergency meetings were called. Humanity had discovered its first alien civilization, and they were facing imminent disaster. Admiral Helen Porter, commander of Earth's Space Rescue Service, took direct control of the situation. "We're looking at the greatest rescue operation in human history," she told the hastily assembled crisis team. "Those ships are carrying who knows how many lives. We have a duty to help them, regardless of where they came from." The rescue fleet was assembled within hours, every space-worthy vessel Earth could muster. Rescue ships, cargo haulers, and engineering vessels were loaded with supplies and emergency equipment. The best space rescue teams on Earth were called up. Meanwhile, at Echo 7, Tom and Rob continued monitoring the alien fleet. They noticed that some of the emergency lights were beginning to fail, one by one. Whatever had disabled the ships was continuing to drain what little power they had left. "It's like they hit some kind of quantum storm," one of the scientists suggested, something that completely disrupted their power systems. As the sun rose over New Mexico, Tom finally took a moment to step outside the monitoring station. He looked up at the morning sky, knowing that somewhere out there, an alien civilization was about to discover that humanity wasn't as primitive as they might think. "First contact," he muttered to himself, "and it's a rescue mission. Who would have thought?" Inside, the station continued tracking the disabled fleet. The first Earth rescue ships were already accelerating toward Jupiter, carrying with them humanity's hopes of proving themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. The greatest challenge in human history had begun, and it would take everything humanity had, not just technology, but courage, creativity, and compassion, to succeed. The clock was ticking, and 15 massive ships full of unknown aliens were counting on Earth's help, whether they knew it yet or not. The Earth rescue fleet approached the massive alien ships after 4 days of hard acceleration. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge of the ERS Horizon, the lead rescue vessel, watching as they drew closer to the nearest disabled ship. "Look at the size of them," Miller whispered. The alien vessel dwarfed his ship, its crystalline hull reflecting Jupiter's distant light. Any response to our signals? Nothing on standard frequencies, reported Communications Officer Lisa Reed. But wait, I'm picking up something. It's weak, probably running on emergency power. The incoming signal resolved into a visual transmission. The bridge crew fell silent as they got their first look at the aliens. The being on the screen was tall and slender, with silvery skin and large, dark eyes. Multiple arms moved gracefully as it spoke, its words being processed through the translation computers. "This is High Commander Trell of the Vir Exodus Fleet," the alien said, its translated voice carrying a tone of both authority and concern. "Who are you?" Miller stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jack Miller of the Earth Rescue Service. We detected your fleet in distress and came to help." There was a pause as the translation went through. Then, surprisingly, a sound that might have been laughter. "Help? You? Your vessels are primitive. Our ships are beyond your comprehension." "With respect, Commander," Miller replied, "your ships are currently drifting toward Jupiter with no power. Primitive or not, we're here to help." The alien's expression changed. At least Miller thought it did. "Our situation is temporary. We encountered an anomaly that disrupted our quantum drive systems. Once we restore power—" "Commander," Miller interrupted, "we've been monitoring your fleet. Your emergency systems are failing one by one. You have maybe 2 weeks before Jupiter's gravity becomes inescapable. How many people are on your ships?" Another pause. 50,000, Trell finally admitted. "Mostly civilians. Families. Children." The bridge crew exchanged glances. The stakes were even higher than they'd thought. "Let us send over an engineering team," Miller offered. "At least let us assess the situation. Those are 50,000 lives at stake." The alien commander seemed to struggle with the decision. Miller could almost see the pride warring with necessity in those strange eyes. "Very well," Trell said finally. "You may send a small team. But understand, our technology is far advanced. I doubt your engineers will even understand what they're looking at." Within an hour, the first human engineering team was boarding the alien vessel. Chief Engineer Mark Turner led the group, carrying basic diagnostic equipment. What they found amazed them. The virus ships were powered by exotic matter manipulation, channeling energy through crystalline matrices that defied normal physics. It was indeed far beyond human technology. But the basic principles of power generation, distribution, and propulsion still followed the laws of physics. "It's like comparing a quantum computer to an abacus," Turner reported back to Miller. "But you know what? An abacus still works when the power goes out." The Vir watched with poorly concealed disdain as the humans began their assessment. But that disdain turned to surprise when Turner's team quickly identified the cascade failure in their power systems. "The quantum anomaly didn't just disable your drives," Turner explained to the Vir engineers. "It created a feedback loop. Every time you try to restart your main systems, it makes things worse." "Then we are doomed," one of the Vir engineers said, "without our quantum drives." "Not necessarily," Turner interrupted, sketching a diagram on his tablet. "We can't fix your quantum systems, but we can rig up something temporary using our technology. It won't be elegant, but it'll work." The Vir engineers stared at his sketches. Simple chemical rockets, solar arrays, and backup power systems that hadn't been used in their society for generations. "This is primitive," one said. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need," Turner replied with a smile. "Now shall we get to work?" The rescue operation was about to begin in earnest, and humanity's primitive solutions were about to prove their worth. Chief Engineer Mark Turner stood in the vast engine room of the Vir flagship, surrounded by towering crystalline structures that normally powered the massive vessel. What should have been a symphony of humming quantum drives was now silent, the exotic technology rendered useless by the anomaly they'd encountered. "Right," Turner said to his team. "Let's show them what human engineering can do." He spread out the technical diagrams they'd prepared. Around him, both human engineers and VER technicians gathered to look at the plans. The VER engineer, Rel, pointed at the diagrams with one of his 4 arms. These are combustion engines, chemical rockets. We haven't used such technology in 1,000 years. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, Turner replied, tapping the diagram. Your quantum drives are beautiful, but they're too complex to fix quickly. These rockets are simple, reliable, and we can build them from materials we have on hand. The human engineers began unpacking their equipment. They'd brought everything they could think of: welding tools, power cables, solar panels, and components for basic chemical rockets. The VER watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as the humans got to work. The first challenge is power, Turner explained as his team began setting up temporary generators. We can't match your normal power output, but we can give you enough to maintain life support and basic systems. The VER engineers observed as humans installed solar arrays along the hull of their ship. The arrays were far less efficient than their quantum collectors, but they worked. One by one, emergency lights began to stabilize as power flowed through the temporary systems. It's like watching cave dwellers build a fire, one VER technician whispered to another, but there was a note of growing respect in his voice. The bigger challenge came with propulsion. The human engineers had to find a way to move ships the size of cities using technology that, to the VER, seemed barely more advanced than steam engines. Turner's team worked around the clock, retrofitting massive chemical rockets to the VER ships. They used every trick they knew: pressure differentials, thermal dynamics, and the basic principles of thrust that humanity had relied on since the beginning of their space age. Your ships are actually helping us, Turner explained to Rel as they worked. The hull material amplifies the thrust from our rockets. We're getting better efficiency than we expected. The VER engineers studied the calculations. This is surprisingly elegant. You're using our advanced materials with your basic principles to create something new. As the work progressed, more VER began to take an interest in what the humans were doing. They were particularly fascinated by how the humans solved problems, not with complex technology, but with creative applications of basic physics. When they needed to transfer fuel between ships, the humans used simple pressure differentials rather than matter transporters. When they needed to strengthen support structures, they used basic geometry and materials science rather than quantum reinforcement. Look here, Turner said, showing Rel a particularly clever modification. We're using your hull's crystalline structure to channel and amplify our rocket thrust. It's like using a magnifying glass to focus sunlight. Basic principles, but effective. The VER engineers began to understand something their advanced civilization had forgotten: the value of simplicity. While their quantum technology was far superior when working properly, the human solutions had an elegant reliability that couldn't be ignored. By the end of the 3rd day, the first test of the temporary propulsion system was ready. The entire crew, both human and VER, gathered in the engine control room. Turner looked at the readouts one last time and nodded to Rel. Would you like to do the honors? He asked, gesturing to the activation switch. The VER engineer hesitated for a moment, then reached out and engaged the system. The ship shuddered slightly, then steadied as the chemical rockets came to life. For the first time in days, the massive vessel began to move under its own power. A cheer went up from both species. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't advanced, but it worked. And sometimes, that was all that mattered. Primitive but brilliant, Rel admitted, all 4 arms raised in celebration. Perhaps we have something to learn from your people after all. Jupiter loomed larger with each passing hour, its massive gravitational pull growing stronger. On the bridge of the VER flagship, Captain Miller and High Commander Trell watched the giant planet swirling storms through the observation window. The chemical rockets are functioning on 12 of our ships, Trell reported, checking the status displays. But we're still losing ground on the outer 3 vessels. Miller studied the tactical display, watching as the rearmost ships continued their slow drift toward disaster. "We need to work faster. Those ships are carrying thousands of your people." The rescue operation had turned into a massive coordinated effort. Human engineering teams worked in shifts around the clock, racing to install the temporary propulsion systems before Jupiter's gravity became too strong to escape. Down in the engine room of one of the struggling ships, Mark Turner wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the rocket assembly. The Ver's artificial gravity was slightly stronger than Earth standard, making the physical work even more demanding. "Pass me that wrench," he called to his assistant. The tool floated across the space. They turned off gravity in this section to make the installation easier. These mounts need to be perfect. One misalignment, and the whole assembly could tear free. Working alongside him, Rel had developed a newfound appreciation for human precision. While Ver technology usually relied on automated assembly, the humans worked with their hands, feeling the machinery, understanding it on an intuitive level. "Your people have an unusual relationship with machines," Rel observed. "You don't just operate them. You connect with them." Turner smiled as he tightened the final bolt. "Machines are like people. Treat them right, understand their quirks, and they'll do amazing things for you." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The internal communication system crackled to life with urgency. "Engineering team, we have a problem," Captain Miller's voice announced. "The quantum anomaly is intensifying. 3 more ships are losing power." Turner and Rel exchanged worried looks. They'd feared this might happen. The mysterious phenomenon that had disabled the Ver fleet was still active, still causing damage. "We need to think outside the box," Turner muttered, then turned to Rel. "Your ships can still communicate with each other, right? Through the crystalline network." "Yes, but what good is that without power?" "We're going to link the ships together," Turner explained, already sketching out a plan. "Route power from the functioning vessels to the failing ones, like a massive jumpstart." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Human engineers rigged massive power cables between ships, using the Ver's own communication network to coordinate the power transfer. It wasn't elegant, but it would buy them time. On the bridge, Miller watched as the power levels on the failing ships began to stabilize. "It's working," he reported to Trell. "But we're putting enormous strain on the functioning ships." "Our people have never attempted anything like this," Trell admitted. "Linking our ships in this way, it goes against all our protocols." "Sometimes survival means breaking the rules," Miller replied. "Now let's get those last rocket assemblies installed while we have the chance." As the hours ticked by, more human ships arrived from Earth, bringing additional supplies and engineering teams. The space around the Ver fleet became a hive of activity, with shuttles darting between vessels and work crews in spacesuits making external modifications. Turner's team worked until exhaustion, taking only brief breaks when ordered. The Ver crew members watched in amazement as these primitive humans refused to give up, finding solutions to problems that their advanced civilization had never considered. "You know what your people's greatest strength is?" Rel asked Turner as they finished installing the final rocket assembly. "What's that?" "You never forgot how to do things the hard way. When everything else fails, you still know how to build, how to fix, how to survive." Turner smiled, checking the final connections. "Sometimes the hard way is the only way. Now let's fire this up and get your people to safety." The race against Jupiter's gravity continued, but now they had a fighting chance. Humanity's determination and ingenuity were proving to be exactly what the Ver needed in their darkest hour. The warning came without notice. Red lights flashed across the Ver flagship's bridge as automated systems detected a critical failure. "Life support is failing on ships 7, 12, and 15, reported Rel, his silver hands flying over the control panels. "The power transfer system isn't keeping up with demand." Captain Miller leaned over the display, his face grim. "How many people on those ships?" 12,000, Commander Trull replied, all 4 arms tense with worry. "Mostly families, including our youngest." The situation was dire. The temporary power systems they'd installed were working, but 3 ships had developed cascade failures in their environmental systems. Without a solution, thousands would suffocate within hours. "We can't evacuate that many people quickly enough," Miller said, running calculations in his head. "And we can't boost power to the life support without compromising the propulsion systems." That's when Mark Turner burst onto the bridge, breathless from running. "Captain, I have an idea. It's not elegant, but it might work." At this point, Engineer Turner will take anything, Trell said. Turner pulled up a schematic of the affected ships. "We can't fix their life support in time, but we can give them our air. Directly." The bridge fell silent as Turner explained his plan. It was absurdly simple. They would run pressurized air hoses between the ships, literally sharing atmosphere between vessels, like scuba divers sharing an air tank. That's impossible," one of the VER officers protested. "The logistics alone." "We have the materials," Turner interrupted. "The emergency suits in your cargo bays. We can link their air hoses together to create longer lines. And the VER ship's hull material can be used to create airtight seals." Miller turned to Trell. "Commander, it's your call. But we need to decide now." Trell looked at the status displays, watching as oxygen levels continued to drop on the affected ships. "Do it." What followed was one of the most unusual space operations in human history. Engineering teams from both species worked together, connecting massive air hoses between ships. They used everything they could find: emergency suit components, cargo tubes, even food delivery systems repurposed as air channels. "We're patching the hoses through the external maintenance ports," Turner reported from his spacewalk position. "The pressure differential is holding steady." Inside the ships, Vire families watched in amazement as fresh air began flowing through makeshift vents. The humans had transformed their advanced vessels into something resembling an ancient submarine network, all connected by a web of life-giving tubes. But they weren't done yet. The ships were still too cold, their heating systems compromised by the power failures. Turner's team had another simple solution. They covered sections of the hulls with emergency thermal blankets, using them to trap heat from Jupiter's radiation. "Your people are using reflective fabric to heat our ships?" a VER engineer asked incredulously. "Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones," Turner replied, adjusting the blanket's angle. "Your grandfather probably used something similar to stay warm, no matter what planet he came from." As hours passed, the situation stabilized. The shared air system maintained breathable atmosphere levels across all ships. The thermal blankets kept temperatures within survivable ranges. It wasn't comfortable, but it would keep everyone alive. On the bridge, Trell watched the status displays with all 4 eyes wide. "I've commanded ships for 30 years, he said to Miller. "Never did I imagine we would save our people with tubes and blankets." Miller smiled. "Humanity learned long ago that survival isn't about having the best technology. It's about using whatever you have, however you can use it." The crisis wasn't over. They still had to escape Jupiter's gravity well. But they'd bought precious time with nothing more than basic physics and determination. The VER were beginning to understand that humanity's primitive approach to problems might be exactly what the galaxy needed. "Perhaps," Trell mused, watching human engineers directing airflow between his mighty ships, "we have become too dependent on our advanced technology. We had forgotten that sometimes the simple solution is the right one." The rescue operation continued, with human ingenuity proving that the laws of physics work the same for everyone, no matter how advanced their civilization might be. "All ships report ready." Turner's voice crackled over the comm system. "Chemical rockets are at full capacity. It's now or never." The moment of truth had arrived. 15 massive VER ships, tied together with human ingenuity and determination, prepared for their desperate escape attempt from Jupiter's gravitational pull. Captain Miller stood on the flagship's bridge beside Commander Trell, both leaders watching the tactical displays. Jupiter's massive form filled most of their view, its swirling storms a constant reminder of what awaited them if they failed. "The calculations are complete," Rel announced from his station. "We'll need perfect synchronization between all ships to achieve escape velocity." Miller nodded. "We've linked all the rocket controls through the main computer. When we fire, they'll fire as one." The plan was audacious. They would use Jupiter's gravity to their advantage, performing a complex slingshot maneuver that would multiply their thrust. It was a technique humans had used since their earliest days of space exploration, but never with ships this large. "Beginning countdown," Miller announced, his voice carrying across all 15 vessels. "All ships prepare for maximum thrust in 10, 9. Suddenly, alarms blared across the fleet. The 13th ship in the formation reported critical engine failure. Its rockets had ruptured during the final pressure test. "We can't wait," Trell said urgently. "The gravity is too strong. If we delay, we lose everything." Miller made a split-second decision. "Turner, get me the Horizon's pilot." "Here, sir," came the response. "How many tow cables do we have?" There was a pause. 3 heavy-duty cables, rated for asteroid mining. "Get them attached to Ship 13. Now." The Ver officers watched in disbelief as the human rescue ship Horizon moved into position. It was tiny compared to their massive vessels, but its pilots worked with precision, attaching the thick steel cables to predetermined hardpoints. "This is madness," one Ver officer protested. "That small ship trying to tow one of ours." "We don't need to provide all the power," Turner explained quickly. "We just need to keep it in formation during the slingshot. Physics will do the rest." Time was running out. The fleet was now at the optimal position for their escape attempt. The Horizon's engines glowed bright blue as it took up the slack in the cables. "All ships, new countdown," Miller announced. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire. The chemical rockets ignited simultaneously across the fleet. The massive ships shuddered as primitive but powerful thrust pushed against Jupiter's gravity. The Horizon strained against its cables, its engines burning at maximum power to keep the disabled ship in formation. "Hull stress increasing," Rel reported. "The disabled ship is starting to drift." "Horizon, give it everything you've got," Miller ordered. The human ship's engines flared even brighter, its frame creaking under the enormous strain. The pilots fought to maintain position as the fleet began its slingshot maneuver around Jupiter. What followed was a dance of physics and skill. The fleet swung around the gas giant, using its gravity to accelerate. The disabled ship threatened to break formation several times, but the Horizon's pilots kept it in line through sheer determination and skill. "We're approaching escape velocity," Rel announced. 30 seconds to break away. The final moments were the hardest. Jupiter's gravity fought to keep them, but the combined power of human chemical rockets and expert piloting proved stronger. With a final burst of acceleration, the fleet broke free. Cheers erupted across all ships as they cleared Jupiter's gravitational influence. The Horizon's cables held, its small frame somehow managing to keep the massive Ver ship in formation throughout the entire maneuver. "I didn't think it was possible," Trell admitted, watching as damage reports showed minimal stress to the fleet. "Your small ship shouldn't have been able to do that." Miller smiled. "Size isn't everything, Commander. Sometimes it's about heart, skill, and knowing exactly how far you can push the laws of physics." As the fleet moved into safe space, the Ver began to understand something profound about humanity. It wasn't just about technology or power. It was about never giving up, about finding solutions where none seemed to exist, and about doing the impossible through sheer determination and courage. The escape was complete, but the story of humanity's ingenuity would be told across the galaxy for generations to come. 1 month after the dramatic escape from Jupiter, the Ver fleet hung in high Earth orbit. Their quantum drives were slowly coming back online as the effects of the anomaly faded, but the fleet remained in position, completing what Commander Trell called important diplomatic discussions. The truth was, the Ver weren't quite ready to leave. They had discovered something unexpected in their rescue, not just allies, but a civilization that challenged everything they thought they knew about technological progress. In the flagship's main conference room, Captain Miller sat with Commander Trell and representatives from both species. The walls displayed images from their shared ordeal, human engineers working alongside Ver technicians, the makeshift air tubes that saved thousands, and the brave Horizon towing a massive alien ship to safety. "Our Council of Worlds will be most interested in your species," Trell announced, his forearms making graceful gestures as he spoke. "We had dismissed Earth as a developing world, too primitive for contact. We were wrong." Miller smiled. "Sometimes being primitive has its advantages. When everything goes wrong, we still remember how to use a wrench." "That's exactly it," Rel added, having become the unofficial bridge between the two species' engineering teams. "Your people understand technology in a way we have forgotten. You don't just use it, you master it, from its simplest forms to its most complex applications." The meeting was interrupted as Mark Turner entered, carrying what looked like an old-fashioned mechanical watch. He handed it to one of the Vir engineers, who had become fascinated by human mechanical devices. "As promised," Turner said. "Simple gears and springs, but it'll keep perfect time for years without any power source." The Vir engineer held the watch with reverent care. "This is what we lost," he said softly. "In our rush to advance, we forgot the beauty of simple solutions." Commander Trell stood, drawing everyone's attention. "We've made a decision. The Vir Confederacy formally invites Earth to join the galactic community. Not as a developing world, but as full partners." The humans in the room sat straighter, recognizing the historic importance of the moment. "Furthermore," Trell continued, "we request that Earth establish a joint engineering academy. Your understanding of fundamental principles, combined with our advanced technology, could revolutionize space travel. And maybe," Miller suggested, "help prevent other ships from being stranded by quantum anomalies." "Exactly," Trell agreed. "The galaxy needs both kinds of knowledge, the advanced and the fundamental. You've shown us that progress isn't just about moving forward. It's about remembering where you came from." The meeting concluded with plans for future cooperation, but the real celebrations were happening throughout the fleet. Ver families who had feared death in the cold void of space now watched their children play with human toys, simple mechanical puzzles that had captured their imagination more than any quantum device. In the engine rooms, human and Vir engineers worked together, learning from each other. The humans gained insights into advanced quantum mechanics, while the Vir rediscovered the elegance of basic engineering principles. As the sun set over Earth, visible through the flagship's observation deck, Miller found himself standing with Trell and Turner, watching their planets share the same sky. "You know what impressed me most?" Trell said quietly. "Not just that you saved us, but how you did it. No hesitation, no concern about revealing your technology, just help freely given." Turner nodded. "That's humanity at its best. When someone's in trouble, you help. Simple as that." "Simple." Trell repeated the word thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's your greatest lesson to us. In a complex galaxy, sometimes the simple answers are the most profound." The Vir fleet would depart the next day, carrying with them stories of human ingenuity, courage, and compassion. But they left behind more than just diplomatic agreements and technical exchanges. They left a new understanding that true advancement comes not from forgetting your past, but from building upon it, one simple solution at a time. In the end, humanity's primitive technology had done more than rescue a stranded fleet. It had opened the door to the stars, proving that sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you began. The rescue of the Vir fleet became legend, told and retold across the galaxy, a reminder that greatness isn't measured by technological advancement alone, but by the wisdom to know when simple solutions solve complex problems.